It's like I have always told y'all, the rent is always due. Okay. And so that may likely explain why Nene Leaks is headed back to the Zeus. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Nene Leaks headed back to the Zeus. Now, you guys recall we talked to you about how she was hosting the Baddies reunion, following in the footsteps of Tamar Braxton herself, another reality TV star who also found success on the Zeus. All right. So, what's going on with Miss Lanithia Leaks now? Okay. Thanks to our friends over at Mr. Housewives. Be sure to follow their podcast. Okay. Um, but Nene Leaks is going to be a judge for the Baddies Caribbean's auditions. Yes, yes, indeed. Okay, so let's get into the tea. All right. So the official hosts are Janisha John and Bobby Lights. Now, we know that Bobby Lights has done, quite a number of reality TV shows, and he just stays working. Okay. And that's really the name of the game. You've just got to stay working in when you are in this space, consecutively, well, not consecutively, but I guess simultaneously being on Love and Hip Hop Miami, he's also been able to find success doing these types of shows as well. And so it looks like Nene Leaks is following suit. So special guest is Nene Leaks. Now, to take things further, let's just look at the main stage judges to put this all in perspective, right? We have Shinsia will be one of the main stage judges, okay? Natalie Nunn and Spice. Now, I'm assuming we see someone like maybe Shinsia, maybe Spice specifically, doing the judging because obviously there's the Caribbean connection there, right? And so then, of course, you also have your pre. They got a lot of judging here. Okay, you got your pre-screen judges. You have these ladies here, Mariah Lynn, who we do know. Okay, from Love and Hip Hop New York, right? So I'm assuming you got to go through these baddies to get to the main stage judges. Okay, for those of you guys who are interested, and these auditions are being held in Miami, actually today. Okay, now they ain't got no walk-ins. Now you can't do no on-site registration. But let's take it back to the Lanithia Leaks of it all. Now, you know, for me, Nene Leaks on Zeus is interesting, right? Because in one mind, I think to myself, when I think about Zeus, unfortunately, the when you think of Zeus at this point in time, you oftentimes think of, you know, uh fighting, people fighting, nonstop fighting. That's what we see being promoted. So, I mean, that's what we tend to think about, at least for myself, right? Now, again, I try not to hate on anybody, especially when I see other people who look like me doing things and creating, spaces for themselves. And I just have to also give them props for doing so, right? Again, it ain't my brand of entertainment because, for me, it's a little bit too much, on the aggressive side. And that's not really my thing. I like watching rich people act a fool, but not to say these ladies ain't rich. Okay, I just don't want. I don't need to see them fighting. That's what I got to say. I don't need to see that. But when you consider who Nene Leaks is, who just covered was on the cover of the Hello Beautiful magazine, and has been a reality TV royal. Like she's literally she's in museums. You know what I'm saying? To see where she has come from to where she is now is very interesting, right? I think it would be easy to also look at this as, a fall from grace, considering the reputation of the network. However, what we also do know is that they pay their talent relatively well from what we hear, right? So I can imagine that Nene's probably getting a good payday from this. And like most reality TV stars who are maybe not a staple on a main show like a Bravo TV show where you might be paid upwards of hundreds of thousands of dollars per episode or however much these people are being paid. you got to think about it in the sense of you got to stay working, right? And I know that we talked about, we kind of touched a little bit on the Taraji of it all, and very, nuanced, and really minuscule way. But you think about it in the sense of like you probably at a certain point in time got to accept some things that you probably wouldn't normally accept, because like I always say, the rent is always due. So at the end of the day, I ask you this before we cast judgment too much on Nene for doing this. I mean, the question becomes, how many of us are doing and working jobs that we do not like so that we can pay our bills and make sure that the rent, which is always due, is always paid? I mean, you got to think about it like that. Like when I sit there and think about it like that, it puts everything in perspective for me, because I know I done worked plenty of jobs that I absolutely hated in order to make ends meet, and that's just it. And the other thing is, I feel like there may be something to the to what Nene has been saying about her not being able to get work in a lot of these other spaces. So why turn her back on the people that are allowing her to give her work? And so it's kind of like at a certain point in time, you got to go where you're celebrated. And maybe she celebrated at Zeus. Who knows? Maybe this will lead to more for her down the line. I, for some reason, sense that this is the beginning of a pretty long lasting relationship. Speaking of the Zeus of it all, let's talk a little bit about Joseline. I mean, since we want to talk about, a little bit of fighting and stuff like that, I just want you guys to know that there are consequences for maintaining that sort of stance outside of the confines of the show. That's the slippery slope of all this. Some people walk around because, for the most part, listen, Joseline may be entertaining to a lot of people, but I think the reality is, for the most part, that she's been rewarded for bad behavior. Got to call a thing a thing. Beautiful woman, but I feel like that's really the case. But at this point in time, she's being sentenced to 2 years probation for putting them paws on that girl, Big Lex. Now, I don't really know much about that Big Lex girl. I only know Joseline from the reality TV shows that we all have watched. Okay. So that's why we're talking about her today. And since Zeus is the topic, I felt like we would just include this information here. So apparently she'll be subjected to random stuff testing, and we'll have to enroll in a 29-week batterers intervention program class online to learn how to better de-escalate situations. Now, how much y'all think that's really going to help Joseline? Especially if she might be being paid, 9 times out of 10 to go put paws on somebody. Because again, the genesis for a lot of these shows is putting paws on people. You get more money, more eyes on you when you start putting paws on people. So do we really think that this is going to help, slow things down or stop it from the next beatdown? I don't know. But when you think about what it means to be on probation, okay, when you look it up, when somebody's on probation, that means that they have convicted or pleaded guilty to a crime, but are given an alternative to incarceration. In other words, instead of serving their sentence in a jail or a prison, they are allowed to remain out of custody. Still, they are under the supervision and must comply with several terms and conditions during the probationary period. Typically, when a judge grants probation, a judge will set a jail or prison term, but suspended, meaning the individual will not be incarcerated. However, if the individual fails to adhere to the conditions of probation, they can be jailed or imprisoned for the amount of time previously entered by the judge. So that means for the next 2 years, Joseline got to stay out the way. Do we think that she can do that? Let me know down in the chatterization down below. Speaking of putting paws on people, or perhaps not necessarily putting paws on them, but giving them a little static should they need it. Okay. And what do I mean by static? Okay. I mean a little spark. Okay. And let's talk about, and if we're talking about a spark, what are we talking about here? What are we talking about? Is exactly. Well, we're talking about a Phaedra Sparks, okay? Phaedra Sparks. Now, a a creator happened to catch this bit of tea, and it has been going viral. And I don't know that many of us actually remembered this, right? But creator Lele, okay, um, posted, or at least had this tagged attached to the post. Says, I'm glad I caught this during the reunion. Phaedra Park, stay ready. So the caption on the Neighborhood Talk reads, wait a minute, did y'all know Phaedra pulled out a taser on Kenya during the Real Housewives of Atlanta season 5 reunion? So I had to watch the clip and I had to really see. I don't know that. Did y'all remember this? I did not remember Phaedra pulling out the stun gun. Okay. Now, here's the thing though. A lot of people were in the comments saying, oh, I'm assuming that maybe she had it because that was also the reunion or the season that Kenya had threatened, allegedly, to knock the teeth out of Phaedra. So maybe Phaedra, in that sense, was like, not me, girl, not today, not today, neck, not today, ankles. You know what I'm saying? I think that Phaedra had came ready, and you can see her literally pull out the stun gun right there. Now, when you go back down into the archives, this is just a fun little walk down memory lane. You will actually recall that back in 2013, okay, Phaedra did a blog on BravoTV.com where she actually talked about Kenya's physical threat. But she also talks about her stun gun. Remember that she had a stun gun line? She says, these past few weeks have been exciting but extremely busy. I have been shooting my new show, Rich People's Problems, preparing for the delivery of our bundle of joy, and launching my new Phaedra Sparks stun gun line, while also studying for final exams. It is great to have the opportunity to work and share my creativity. Following the first part of the reunion, I received numerous emails and calls concerning the physical threat Kenya made towards me. I really appreciate everyone's concerns. However, as we have seen all season, being inappropriate is the norm for Kenya, but I was taken aback that she would actually threaten to physically strike an 8-month pregnant woman. While violence is never acceptable under any circumstances, to even think about hitting a pregnant woman is horrifically despicable and evidences anything but sanity. Even though she attempted to portray my supporters in a less than favorable light, please know that I am grateful for your support and I think you are the best. So, the Phaedra Sparks stun gun, I mean, that was a thing. That was a thing. So, when you really think back on it, I'm like, whatever happened to that line? You know what I'm saying? I don't think it's still in existence today, but that was quite the product placement right there. Just a little moment in Bravo history that everybody seemed to be talking about right now. And since it was going viral, I felt like we would investigate it further. Anyway, that's the tea that we got for you guys today. Make sure you guys are enjoying your Saturday. Y'all know I love y'all, and I will catch y'all, of course, in the next video.